The roots of clowning can be stretched back to ancient times. In fact, clowns or comedic performers can be traced back all the way to ancient civilizations like Greece, Egypt, and even Rome. In these early civilizations, theatrical performances often featured comedic characters who entertained crowds with humor and physical antics. These characters weren't always funny in the ways we think of today. Sometimes they were crude, silly, and slapstick figures who highlighted the human folly. Now, many criminologists and psychologists agree that the root of the fear of clowns lies in the fact that clowns wear very heavy and extreme makeup and paint extreme emotions on their faces that hide their true feelings from the people who are viewing them, which of course makes the human mind stressed because they aren't able to understand what that person is thinking and thus what their intentions are with them and their children. But up until around the early 80s, this wasn't really something that affected people in America all that much. There had to have been something important, something that really changed the way people thought of clowns in the entertainment sphere, especially around children's entertainment, that really affected how the American people, as well as people surrounding the world, think of clowns on a daily basis. What made them go from beloved and trustworthy people to a chilling thing you would never want to see in the street at night? Well, it came down to two people: John Wayne Gacy and Stephen King. John Wayne Gacy had seemingly tainted his profession as a clown with his after work hobby as a child killer. He was a neighbor, he was a homeowner, he was well trusted in his community. He was a professional clown that went by Pogo. And with all of those labels, he went on to kill and torture 33 young boys and bury them in his backyard. He went unnoticed for years. He even invited police into his home. Despite the fact that John Wayne Gacy never killed in costume, instead luring kids in Chicago under the name John into his car, later taking them back to his house, torture, killing them, and then burying them in his backyard, it didn't matter. Because once it was understood that he killed over 33 people, but was also one of the most lighthearted professions in the American populace at that time, it became synonymous that if someone as known, popular, and trusted as John Wayne Gacy was able to kill people, what else could these other clowns be hiding? Could I have been inviting people who wanted to harm my children into my home? Had I been lapsed in my judgment with the way clowns were? At the time, it really did seem like the reputation of clowns was up in the air, especially when it was revealed the costumes that John Wayne Gacy wore. And sure enough, he did look like a very traditional clown. He had exaggerated clown makeup. He had the costumes. He went and performed. But I say, at the very least, we shouldn't always contribute John Wayne Gacy's killing to his affinity with clowns. It was very obvious that he chose the profession because it gave him easy access to children. That doesn't mean that the profession is bad or all clowns are bad. It just means that some bad people are using it to gain access to children. The same way that some bad people are teachers, some bad people are nurses. Those are still all lighthearted and brave professions that interact with children and vulnerable people on a daily basis. That doesn't mean that those people who aren't doing the bad things are also bad and should be lumped in as well. Any chance of the image of clowns being salvaged after the John Wayne Gacy killings were swiftly defeated by the release of Stephen King's It, a story of a killer clown luring children into sewers and eating and killing them. It was very synonymous and very obvious that he had taken inspiration from the John Wayne Gacy murders, as the first few pages very much feature a young child being lured in by a clown with bright makeup, exaggerated features, whom the child trusted because it was a clown, giving them a balloon, and then, of course, killing them. At this point, it became a whole new trend. If the trend in horror nowadays is taking children's entertainment, such as animatronics that you see in things like Chuck E. Cheese and other children's establishment, and turning them into haunted killer monsters that hunt children and also hunt people, then in the 80s, it was clowns. All of a sudden, more and more images surrounding killer clowns kept popping up. Killer clowns from outer space, the poltergeist. It just became synonymous in a new horror trope, the creepy killer clown that hides his intentions under a bright, innocent facade. However, I would say that the one true thing that really had the American people up in arms were the 2016 killer clown sightings. 2016 was an odd year for everyone, but one of the true phenomenon that no one was really able to explain was the en masse threats, terroristic threats, from people dressed up as clowns, saying that they were going to do horrible things to schools, malls, and establishments all over America. Reports in Wisconsin and Alabama were cited that killer clowns were trying to lure children into the woods. Now, none of those reports were corroborated and none of those people were caught. However, the hysteria caught on as people took inspiration and began to harass people in public spaces dressed up as clowns. They were going to homes, they were following people down the street. Some people had chainsaws, some people had knives, but the damage was done. A new wave and new generation of people who are now using a clown's facade to harass and sometimes torture the innocent American civilians have really changed the perception of clowns once again. If clowns were sort of something that people viewed as creepy but were able to disregard because you didn't really see them in real life, now you saw them everywhere. YouTubers and influencers were bursting at the seams to dress up as clowns and chase their friends around their mansions and their backyards and get millions of views of young children seeing what they thought was their favorite popular influencer get stabbed, killed, harassed, and cornered by killer clowns dressed up in crazy masks and makeup. However, the clowning profession still goes on, and to this day, there are many people who go out and perform as clowns with all the best intentions. So, the real culprit behind the personification of why people hate clowns really is the media. Most people's bad experiences with clowns isn't personal, and most people nowadays aren't really old enough to remember John Wayne Gacy or really only faintly remember the 2016 terroristic clown sightings. Many people take inspiration as well as fear from the way that they're depicted in media. Right now, I am wearing the shirt of a person that dressed up as a killer clown and goes around and tortures and kills girls for about 2 hours on screen. Watch Terrifier. The media has a way of twisting the way that the public views certain jobs as well as certain professions. And I think that this is a very clear example of one of those professions being twisted for the worst, with only a few instances of people really abusing the power that comes with being a child's entertainment and using it to capture kids. And even the most famous and extreme example didn't really do that. While he was trusted and able to sort of use the goodwill that he created and garnered while being a clown for children, that wasn't his MO and not why he killed. So when you are afraid of something, really take a step back and look if that fear comes from a place of theatrics or actual malice.